listening. It's like, yes. I didn't even know I did half those things. Lord.
People ask me to evaluate their marketing communications plans, but I don't make a big deal about it. It looks fresh off the printer. The graphics are impeccable.
So the truth of the matter is we're going to talk about modern research. And by modern, I mean a lot of these tools didn't exist 10 years ago. And many of the tools that we're going to talk about, they didn't even exist just 5 years ago. And if you're one of the many, many marketers who has a mission to improve your marketing ROI, you're not alone. A study was done of marketing executives by Chief Marketing Officer magazine, and they found that accountability was the #1 issue facing CMOs. It was ahead of brand building, it was ahead of innovation, it was even ahead of creativity. In that same study, they found that more than 3/4 felt that they must demonstrate value of marketing in order to protect their budgets. And more than 50% said that the pressure to prove the value of marketing communications was increasing year over year. So why is this still an issue? Advertising and marketing have been around for decades and decades and decades. Companies spend billions of dollars on advertising and marketing. So why is measurement still such a challenge? Well, there's a few huge reasons. One of them is the fact that the quantity of marketing activities has increased tremendously in the past number of years. The American Association of Advertising Agencies, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, they have specific metrics or types of metrics for more than 40 different marketing activities. And if you start thinking about it, from advertising to public relations to sales promotion, point of sale to specialty to direct marketing, there really are a ton of marketing tactics out there. Those 40 activities, they don't even include digital marketing. So things we didn't even know about 10 or 15 years ago or even think about, search volume, website hits, unique visits, time on site, email open rates, forwarding rates, now they're things that we are responsible for in many businesses. So you have these two huge buckets of things that you're responsible for. And that doesn't even include the brand elements, the brand awareness, brand attitudes, share of voice. And many of us in this room who are responsible for marketing communications also have to monitor and pay attention to the business goals of transactions and sales and profitability, new customers. So, all that said, however, there is good news. And there's all bad news first. I'm going to get to the good news in a moment, but I'll tell you about the bad news first. Most marketing departments in the past few years, especially as we went through the downturn, saw fewer and fewer resources available to them from a time standpoint and also from a money standpoint. Again, as marketers, we have to take care of all these different tactical things, from sales shows, from trade shows to customer events to sales meetings, collateral materials and catalogs, direct marketing, websites. All these tactical things have to get done. Is there really time to do measurement? And if you're doing the measurement, is there time to take time to analyze and do something with the data? And then the other piece of bad news, sorry, it's the third, is money. It does cost money, not only in time, but in real money, to do marketing measurement in most cases. And that is a challenge for most businesses. So we have a huge amount of things to measure. We have a limited amount of time to do it, and most likely we have a limited amount of money to do it. So now I'm going to get to the good news. The good news is that today's marketing measurement tools, they're more powerful to use than ever before, they're faster, and they're easier to use. And in some cases, they are less expensive than they have been in the past. So we're going to start with taking a look at different types of tools that are available in 4 buckets: paid media, owned media, shared media, and earned media. And these terms will be familiar probably to most of you in the room. If they're not, as we go through each section, we're going to describe what they mean. We're going to start with earned media and talk about 4 different tools for measuring the results of marketing communications in this world. Earned media basically is press coverage, whether it's consumer or it's trade, whether it's online or offline, whether it's third-party mentions. This is the category we're talking about with earned media. And first tool we're going to talk about is called PR Web. PR Web allows you to feed information online. This is an online-only tool of news releases or press releases, and it monitors the success that you gain from that particular news release or press release. It is fairly limited. It is not a comprehensive tool, but it is very inexpensive too. You can get in for well under $1,000 to test out PR Web and see if it happens to work for you. It does allow you to measure and monitor the success of the release that you've put out there. PR Web's big brother is Vocus. And if you're in public relations, you're probably at least familiar with the Vocus tool. It's an amazing tool for earned media, but it also now has a social media component, which we'll talk about later. But Vocus is an online and offline measurement tool, and it looks at more than 200,000 news sources. It covers 210 television and radio DMAs and scours the internet for information that talks about your brand or keywords that you ask it to talk about. Vocus is a lot more expensive. It starts at around $4,000 and can go way up from there depending on how much work you do with Vocus, but it's a heck of a powerful tool. And a competitor to Vocus, an option to Vocus, until about 3 months ago when they merged, is Cision. Both of these entities have about between 1.4 and 1.6 outlets that they can feed information to. Cision is very similar. It is not cheap either. You can get in with Cision at about $12,000 just to get started to monitor your earned media, but it does have some robust tools similar to Vision. It'll be interesting to see what happens because Vocus, Cision, and a third company were all purchased in the past 3 months, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how this plays out. But at this moment in time, you can choose Vocus or Cision as a marketing measurement tool for earned media. Next, we're going to move to one that's much less expensive, My Media Info. This is a little bit more of a do-it-yourself tool, but it also costs about a quarter of the amount of Cision. My Media Info is a little bit more difficult to use. It's not quite as user-friendly, and you do have to feed a little bit more data. It doesn't have some of the same bells and whistles, but depending on your situation, it could be a good tool for earned media. So that's the first bucket we're going to talk about, earned media. Next, we'll move into owned media. And basically, owned media is anything that you have complete control of. So your website, your direct marketing, your collateral materials, your point of purchase, your apps that you develop, your emails or newsletters. And owned media is big from a website search engine optimization, email standpoint, of course, for probably every single person in this room. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on web and SEO in particular. And of course, the Mac Daddy, and I'm sure everyone in this room either uses or is very familiar with, is Google Analytics. But we want to talk about it for a few minutes because of the things that it has added to its repertoire for free. And we all know that Google Analytics, from a website standpoint, can look at the number of users, can look at the pages, how much time they're spending on the site, how many new users there are versus returning visitors. But it also now allows you to do in-page analytics, so you can do the same thing on specific pages within your site and see what the bounce rates are from particular spots on the site. So you may be able to do some things to help optimize the experience for the website users. It also allows you to take a look through, and again, this tool's been around for a little while, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It allows you to see what the customer's paths are within your website, to see where they're going from point A to point B, and hopefully that aligns with the way that you want them to go, but if it doesn't, you can make some adjustments along the way. And now it provides information on what channels companies or prospects are coming from to get to your website. So whether it's from organic search, whether they typed it in on their own, whether it is from social or from an email that you sent out, all that data is now free on Google Analytics. And one more thing that's pretty cool and wasn't available 2 years ago with Google Analytics, they will let you see how many people are on your site right now. And a couple years ago, this was not live. it was fed in and you'd be hours past when people were actually on your site. But this past, just a few months ago, they now allow you to see how many people are actually on your site at the time. And the reason that this is so cool is if your site typically has 100 people on it, and you see you have a big hit of, it goes up to 2,000 people that are on it right now, something happened. You got a hit, a big hit in press somewhere. Some customer did something that really got attention for your brand. You can figure out where that came from and potentially make adjustments to your website based on the information that is driving them there. So it's a pretty cool tool, and it is a free tool from Google Analytics. So that's the basics. There's a little bit more, of course, but those are some of the highlights of the basics. But Google also allows you to have the premium service, where you have 24/7 dedicated account support. They provide guidance on how to maximize the website experience. They add numerous additional variables with which to measure the results of the website experience. And they do this, it's so kind of them, because they do this for the low, low price of $150,000. Yeah, isn't it so generous? You know, it's a lot of money, but as important as websites are to a lot of our businesses, and as Google basically owns the world, and we're going to talk about them in 2 more areas as we move along here because we have no choice, it can be a heck of a deal at $150,000 for this particular service. So, all right, next we're going to talk about, this is also talking about your owned media and talking about, again, your website. This tool is called Crazy Egg. And basically what it does is it allows you to see graphically what is going on with your website. So it allows you, come over here again, to see on a heat map where people are clicking on your site. It has a confetti feature, which is up here. We blew that up because this is pretty amazing. It allows you to see what source the people are coming from and then where those particular people are clicking on your site. And then it has the scroll map feature, which is fantastic, especially for all the websites now that have very long scrolling home pages. Google Analytics doesn't do this. This is one of the big reasons why this is up here. Scroll map allows you to see where people drop off as they're scrolling down on your home page. And it starts at 100% and goes down to 0%. But it allows you to see, if you'd have a big drop from 70 to 40%, you could probably make a strategic decision that A, you need to cut it off there and then put the other content somewhere else, or B, you better have more interesting information at that drop-off point to try to keep them engaged and scrolling down. We have seen an example of a website that went down to almost 0% at the bottom of the rung, which basically means that as they scrolled down, almost everybody was gone. So they obviously needed to really think through their strategy for having a big, long page, because a lot of us, and we do it too, you put a lot of information on that home page hoping that you can keep them going, and sometimes it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. So that's Crazy Egg. It is very inexpensive to look into this tool. And I won't say this for all these tools because so many of them are like this. They want you as their customer. Most of them will offer free trials. Some of them offer free tests. Some of them offer free 30-day, 60-day, 90-day trials. But almost every one of them that we're going to talk about, and I'll give you costs on a lot of them, but almost every one of them allows some kind of free trial. But you can use Crazy Egg. You can get in with Crazy Egg for under $200 a year. So the next area we're going to talk about is surrounding search engine, organic basically, search engine optimization. And this tool is called Compete, and it helps you understand how visitors get to your site, but also helps you understand how visitors go to competitive sites as well. So you can understand actually your competitors' search engine marketing campaigns and keywords that they're using. And you ask, how can they do this? Because that's information that isn't readily available. They have well over 2 million internet users that have agreed to allow Compete to watch their click paths. So they can see where they came from and where they went to next. And again, it's not an inexpensive tool. At the basic level, it's going to be more than $1,000 and goes up to around $10,000 depending on what you're looking for. But boy, does it really, it can help you save money on pay-per-clicks. It can help obviously bring up your ranking in search engines, which is very valuable. So it's a heck of a good tool. The next tool is specifically involving search engine optimization, and it's called Moz. And some of you might have known it as SEO Moz. But what it does is it crawls your website and it crawls competitive websites and pulls out keywords and provides recommendations on how you can rank higher in the organic searches. Another strong tool, again, it starts at around $1,200, but can go up to close to $10,000. So depending on what modules and how much you're using it. But again, could be a very, very valuable tool regarding improvement in search engine rankings. All right, so the next tool everybody in here is familiar with, because you receive emails with it at the bottom. All of you probably have some kind of email service that you use, whether it's Vertical Survey or MailChimp or Constant Contact, and a lot of them do similar things. One that we have been very pleased with, and many of you probably use, is Campaign Monitor. Many of these tools, including this one, allow you to see obviously opens and clicks, the social sharing that takes place, how many bounces. It ties in with Google Analytics. This and some of the other tools allow you to see what the email is going to look like on different browsers and see what it's going to look like on different devices, iPhones, mobile, iPads, and computers before you send it out, testing it before you send it out. They also allow you to do A/B variant testing. They're very good with allowing you to see historical data. And finally, you can tie this into other dashboards, or you can use the data as its own entity. And we'll talk about dashboards a little bit later, but Campaign Monitor and some of the other tools are good for that. Okay, so we're still in the owned realm, and this time we're going to talk about a customer relationship management related tool called Satmetrics. And in full disclosure, every tool that we're sharing today, we either have experience with or our clients have experience with. This is an exception. There's a couple of exceptions, one at the end and then this one. We've never worked with Satmetrics, but it's very interesting. What it does is basically you feed them your customer database. They send out to your customers the Net Promoter Score question, which is, would you recommend, how likely are you to recommend this brand or service or product to your friend or family member? And typically, if you get an 8, 9, or 10, you're a promoter. Some people say if you get 6 or below, you're a detractor. If you're 4 or below, you're really a detractor. You're pissed off. Something went wrong. But Satmetrics allows you to find this Net Promoter Score and then take advantage of those customers that are your promoters by feeding them special offers, giving them incentives to share with their friends and family, special promotions, to really work with those folks that are believers in your business. On the flip side, for those detractors, it allows you to talk with them and try to figure out how you might be able to maybe not get them back into your brand's good graces, but at least not to share all the bad news about what happened with them. But Satmetrics, one of the reasons why we haven't used it, it is very expensive. You can't get in for much under $30,000 just to start, and it goes up from there, up into the $50,000 range. But part of the reason why it is so expensive is the fact that it is working with customers that are so valuable to companies, they'll pay it. They'll pay it. So, all right, so that is a lot of the tools that are related to things that are very common with owned media. Okay, but what about like point of purchase material and trade show booth graphics and packaging and things that are much more difficult to measure? Well, there's qualitative and quantitative research that you can do to test those type of things, to measure those type of things, of course, and there's a lot of anecdotal information you can give. But this tool, called Poll Everywhere, is a nice alternative. What it allows you to do is basically take any group, you ask a question in the Poll Anywhere app, they can respond in real time via Twitter, on their mobile phone, or on a website, and you can see the responses immediately. So think about it for you all. When you have a sales meeting and you have 2 different concepts that you're thinking about for packaging or for collateral, you can actually put both of them up there and see what the responses are in real time. in Keynote. It goes into Keynote. It goes into PowerPoint. And the uses for this, we've had a client that used it at a trade show that had a new product that they developed, and there were a couple different things that made it different. They weren't sure, and they didn't want to spend the money, unfortunately, spend the money to do a heavy-duty focus group test. They actually used Poll Everywhere, and it was a landslide, so they actually decided this is the way that we're going. Internally, they didn't agree, but they asked the customers and got the answer that they wanted. So a very reasonable tool. Again, you can get in for just a few $100s a year for a smaller sample size. Does go up to well over $10,000 a year if it's a bigger sample size, but something that covers a lot of other areas of owned media. So now we're into the next bucket, which is paid media. And paid media is exactly what it sounds like, and you would expect. Any type of advertising, from print to online advertising, pay-per-click advertising, events that you're a part of. And we're going to start by talking about print advertising. Some of the typical ways that you would look at measuring the results of print advertising are QR codes or AR codes, inbound calls to a custom number, traffic to a specific website or a microsite, and even BRC submissions. And for those of you that have been in the business for 20 years or more, you remember there was a time when there weren't that many things that you could measure surrounding marketing communications. Business reply cards, trade show leads, pre-buy, post-buy analysis, number of impressions for PR. You could do the brand awareness and brand health stuff, but a lot of these other things didn't even exist. Well, BRC submissions are one of the things that have kind of made it through. They're still around. Trade publications use them. They have online and still the little BRCs you can send in, and some get them. Anyway, talking too much about that. All right, let's move into print research from a messaging and creative standpoint. And another tool that's been around for a long time is Starch. And Starch allows you to look at, by publication, the effectiveness of your advertisement. It will show you how your brand performs, how your creative performs against not only competitors, but they also benchmark the entire gamut of advertisers within certain publications. So this is a great tool to use to pre-test before you spend X number of dollars on a national campaign. You can use Starch to test out the effectiveness of your message. Things from whether the ad was noticed, the message that they took away from it, how engaged were they. So something to think about there. Moving to the online digital world, flash talking is a great tool, especially if you have a media buy that's involved and you want data quicker. Flash talking allows you to feed the data to those publications and websites and online places that you've purchased and monitor the success in real time. A lot of times if you're doing a media buy, you're not going to find out until maybe a month later what the results were. Flash talking feeds it up and feeds that information back to you right away. You can get in with flash talking for about 1 million impressions, about $1,000, so it's quite reasonable. And it allows you to test. That's the beautiful thing here. You can test the different sizes of ads, the locations that they are, the messaging. You can test the creative. You can test the time of day. Try it at 9 o'clock versus 5 o'clock or 4:30, probably not 5 o'clock. And it's a really strong tool from a media standpoint. If you're not doing a specific media buy, here's Google again, Google Display Networks. And I imagine most of us are familiar with this, but Google Display Networks allows you to feed your advertisements, and they can be text, they can be images, they can be video, into places on the web that are determined by contextual targeting. This is where remarketing comes in, interest categories. You can do it by geography. You can do it by demographics. And it's a strong tool and an easy tool to use, and it can be as inexpensive as you want. You can run a test on the Google Ad Display Network with $100 and see where that goes and how you want to adjust from there. Tying in, staying with the Google theme here, another paid world, of course, is the world of pay-per-click. And Google AdWords kind of dominates this as well. Obviously, you choose keywords, you create your own pay-per-click ads, and in real time, you can monitor the success of those ads by clicks, the number of impressions, the click-through rates. cost per click conversion, and again, you can get in here trying this out at a very, very small rate. And I do know that some of these tools are obviously things that you're already using. Hopefully you'll pick up a few things that aren't as familiar as Google AdWords. So we're going to move into the final category of the 4 buckets, and that's shared media. Obviously, a huge, huge world. Blogs, Pinterest, Houzz, Facebook, Twitter, the list goes on and on. Instagram, Vine, learning new ones, I'm sure you are too, every day. There are so many different social media outlets now, many of them allowing advertising or feeds into their social media platforms. And these are all familiar to us. Depends on the application. Likes, shares, posts, followers, retweets, pins, links clicked, videos played, mentioned, and conversation shared. This could be 4 additional slides of ways that you can measure the results of your social media. But we're going to talk about 4 tools that cover almost all of the social media outlets. The first one is called BrandWatch. More than 1,000 businesses use this, and it crawls more than 70 million, places to try to find mentions of your brand or keywords that you ask it to find. You can do competitive benchmarking with them. It is not an inexpensive tool. A lot of these social media monitoring tools are not cheap. This one starts at around $10,000. But the amount of listening that you can do with BrandWatch and a couple other of these is pretty stunning. This tool is called Simply Measured, and it is very, very similar, but it's a less expensive option. It starts at around $7,000 and goes up from there. As you add modules, it costs more, but you can do some minimal social media monitoring. Again, depending on how much monitoring you're doing, how often you're doing it, what you're looking for, how deep your keyword list is, whether you're looking at competitors or your own. The costs vary, but it's another very cool tool to listen to social media. And then this is one that I'm sure a few of you in this room are quite familiar with, Meltwater Buzz. Meltwater Buzz has been around for a little bit longer than some of these other tools and is a little bit more sophisticated, and they're very, very clever because our understanding, and we have one client that works with this, is they're very much a modular thing. You can start at $6,000, but every single module adds on top of that, and before you know it, you're spending $48,000 going, wow, how did that happen? But it's a very good tool, and it does tie into your CRM program, allows you to tie into your CRM program, which is a benefit as well. And we'd be remiss, and I was excited to hear that you had somebody from Salesforce because you might be able to tell us a little bit more about what's going on here. Radian 6 used to be probably the Mac Daddy of social media monitoring tools. And they were very expensive. They didn't have a lot of competitors. Obviously, they have a lot of challengers now. But Salesforce purchased Radian 6. Of course, Salesforce owns. How many of us use Salesforce in here? Is it? Yeah, a bunch of us. Yeah, they own. They're Google-ish. They own a lot of businesses. But they are now a service of Salesforce, along with several other monitoring and tools that help with marketing and sales. This last tool is called Demographics Pro, and it's really a tool for Twitter. And what it does is it listens to conversations just in Twitter of folks that are talking about your brand or things related to your brand or your competitors, and it helps you really understand the Twitter-specific audience. It talks about the gender, the race, the income levels, and it also helps you understand what those Twitter participants are doing from a demographic and psychographic standpoint beyond your brand. So this was pulled for Harley-Davidson. They overlaid it with other things that those people were talking about. They eat at Texas Roadhouse, and I know it's a surprise, but Hooters was up there. They shop at the Home Depot and some other places that you might expect that Harley-Davidson tweeters go. But it's an interesting tool, and it's also very inexpensive compared to some of the others. Of course, this is just Twitter, but at a minimal level, you can get in around $400. And if you have kind of a Mac Daddy program with it, it's only around $4,000. So if Twitter is an important part of your media mix, Demographics Pro is certainly worth considering. Okay, so we've talked about earned, and pretty quickly I might say, earned, owned, shared, and paid media. We've talked about tactical elements, and we've talked about measurement tools for a bunch of them. This section is going to share 4 dashboards that help make it a little bit easier to have data in one place. And the first one is Raven. It covers some SEO tools, some social sharing tools, some content marketing tools, and pay-per-click tools. And what they do is they basically allow you access to this group of measurement tools, or this group. Moz is in there, Campaign Monitor is in there, Constant Contact is in there. What else do I want to point out? Well, you can see who's up there. They are basically giving you access to more than $10,000 worth of marketing measurement tools, and you can get in with them for between $1,000 and $2,000. So if you want to do a lot of listening from a lot of these different sources, this dashboard is an interesting way to go. And let me mention something else about these dashboards. Most of them are widget-based, so you can kind of adjust the way that they look, and you can have the data up there that you want to have up there. Now this one, I mentioned that I was going to talk about Vocus later. This is Outmarket, formerly Vocus Marketing Suite. And it just changed very, very recently. But Vocus has always been good at having other resources that it can pull from. But now that it's joined with these other companies, it's going to probably take it to the next level. We don't know what's going to happen to cost. But Vocus allows you to, in one place on the dashboard, take a look at social media, earned media, and tie in some of the other marketing communications elements, and something pretty reasonable. It starts at around $4,000 a year and goes up to around $30,000 a year. So again, depending on how much you're putting into the tool itself. Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 more dashboard-related items, but these 2 are a little bit heavier duty, and I'll explain why. All right. This company, which is relatively new, is called Domo, D-O-M-O. And if you haven't heard about it or read about it yet, you probably will. It's pretty amazing what they're doing. They're basically able to pull all sorts of marketing, media, measurement tools into one place, and they're able to overlay data that you feed into it from Excel documents, etc., so that you can overlay and see, okay, this is what was happening with social, this is what was happening with pay-per-click, this is what was happening with sales, this is what was happening with profits. It's pretty amazing. The catch is it's very expensive. Right now, tens of thousands of dollars to get in. You won't see a price on their website. You've got to call for a price so that they can experience the shock on the phone. But you know, it is really quite amazing what it's able to do. And the other thing, it's very user-friendly, it's easy to use, and it does have beautiful graphics. We don't have a client that's using this. We have had them come in and talk with us, and we were all just like, this is awesome. But the catches are, of course, you have to have somebody that's feeding the data in, that's monitoring the data and doing something with it. And it's a time-consuming thing because you're providing the data into their databases, basically. Another much less expensive item to consider, which with much fewer bells and whistles, but similar, is called Tableau. And we are now using Tableau. We've just started, so we can't say it's amazing. We think it's going to be amazing, though. Much less expensive. You can either use a downloadable version, which is less expensive, or you can use a cloud-based version. And it, again, takes a lot of this information and puts it in one spot, and you can overlay your data with it. And I tell you, for companies that have a lot of products that come out or have different regional situations that require different thinking, you can run tests in particular markets and feed the data in, let's say, from the Northeast, what you're doing along with sales, profit, volume, whatever it is. And these 2 tools can really help you make decisions. So you may not have to, you may know at that point, this is not something that we want to launch nationwide or spend millions of dollars on. These are very powerful information tools that can help you make strategic decisions. Tableau has about 17,000 customers already signed up. And it does start, it's one user, and it's the downloadable version, so it's not quite the same, but you can get in for under $1,000 with this particular program. So, we've talked about a lot of tools very quickly, more than 20 tools. So if you're feeling just a little bit overwhelmed, or if measuring marketing makes you feel a little bit overwhelmed, join the club. 66% of marketers said that they are overwhelmed by the amount of data available for analysis. 66% are overwhelmed by the amount of data available for analysis. So we question whether or not some of these people are really looking at the right things. As Indiana Jones said, they're digging in the wrong places. Or as Peter Drucker said it a little bit more eloquently, there is surely nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency what should not be done at all.
Back in the day, if we wanted to measure marketing program results, we had to wait. First, the campaign to run its course. This does a value good, and then for the research staff. And then for the results. And then for the analysis. This process left marketers in the dark and frustrated. Then came the internet. And things got quicker and quicker and quicker. Now, there's data everywhere, all the time. There's so much data, and marketers are getting frustrated. With more data, they don't know what to do with. Measure what matters.
All right, so we're going to talk for a few minutes about thoughts on how to measure what matters and to make some sense of all this information that's out there. Going through a few top-line things, and then we're going to get into a very specific discussion. Think about whether or not you have the time, how much time it takes to get the information, whether you have the time to do anything with that data before you work with some of these marketing measurement tools. Going back to money, how much money does it cost to get involved with these marketing tools, and what do you believe the return on the investment is going to be? Are you really going to be able to recoup the money by subscribing to SEO, Moz, or to any of these marketing tools? And then the last huge thing, and this could have a little starburst and a circle behind it, beside it, over it, around it, whatever, which my creative department will kill me for saying that, so it's just act a little bit bolder. If you're not going to do anything with the information, and we see this more often than you probably have seen it too, if you're not going to do anything with the information, don't spend the time and the money to do the measurement, or the time, I said that, time or money to do the measurement. And in some cases, if you don't feel like you can do anything based on the information that you gather, then it's not worth, obviously, pursuing that particular marketing measurement tool. So if there's one thing that you do, it's consider marketing measurement tools and understanding how ROI works by looking at those which are most closely tied with reaching your goals. We believe that marketing goals and business objectives have to work together. You're not doing justice to your marketing efforts if you're not working with what the business objectives are and what the CEO of the company wants to come out of marketing communications. So we absolutely believe, and we're going to kind of go through a build here of the steps. And again, some of you, and many of you, may go through these exact same steps, but we're going to spell them out anyway. Starting with business objectives. Is it to increase sales, increase transactions, to increase profits, to increase market share? And of course, everybody in here is like, yeah, we want to do that. We want to do all that. So if that's the case, which it is in many places, prioritize. What is most important? Is it to increase profits by 10%? Is it to increase sales by 20%? Do you want to increase the volume that you're selling? What are the business objectives? And prioritize that, because that is what should drive your marketing goals. Your marketing goals should come straight out of what those business objectives are. We've had clients that have had goals of increasing profit that led to goals of decreasing sales, where they cut off the 5 or 10% that were costing them a lot of money to do business, they weren't selling much with. So their goal was to increase profit, and they actually had a goal of decreasing the sales. it really depends. Everybody's situation is different. If profitability is a big goal, then it may not be selling to new customers and paying all that money to acquire new customers. It might be building the business with your existing customers, or it might be focusing on those areas of your business where you know the profit is the greatest. So marketing goals would tie right into the business objectives, would help you reach the business objectives, and that's when you develop the foundational brand and marketing strategies that would come right out of the marketing goals. So this is more on the tactical side. These are things that you can do to help you reach those marketing goals that will help you reach those business objectives. So let's take it a step further. Once you have the brand and marketing strategies in place, you apply them to very tightly defined target audiences. Not only the decision makers, but in many cases, the influencers of those decision makers. We typically try to recommend that you're very methodical with this, from a thinking through who's your primary target audience, who can really make the difference, who's secondary, who's tertiary, who are these influencers that can impact. And we find over and over again there typically are influencers that make a difference on whether or not that main decision maker is going to pull the trigger. So we recommend developing in-depth target personas for all these audiences and really understanding and fleshing out who these people are, what their path is to purchase. And once you do that, and we'll show on the customer path on the next page an example of it, you really are equipped to identify the actions that these people need to take to get them to the next step, which will allow us, obviously, to meet our objectives. So once you've developed these in-depth target personas for each one of them, you want to think about what their customer journey is. And some of you, again, have already identified customer journeys for many of your customers and influencers. But establish this customer journey and then figure out, think through what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling in each stage of the journey. Are they gaining inspiration from social sites? Are they searching for a dealer, walking in a showroom, asking a retail salesperson for guidance, searching online for information, looking at customer reviews? Are they ordering a sample? Are they ordering a free trial? Are they playing a DIY or instructional video, requesting a catalog, calling for pricing, studying the bay or the shelf? Think about all these different areas, and once you've identified that, what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling, and where it really matters, what is it that's going to get them to the next stage in that journey? And those become what we call, a lot of people call, the marketing tipping points. And those marketing tipping points are what form the measurement plan. So you're not measuring things that aren't really important in getting your customer from point A to point B, or point B to point C. You're thinking through their journey and figuring out where you want to measure those things that get them along that customer path. So by measuring performance at key tipping points on the customer journey, marketing then can demonstrate program effectiveness and accountability, and that's where you've measured what matters. So with that, would love to get your feedback, and would also love to hear about tools that you found to be successful in your business surrounding earned, owned, paid, and shared, and any other suggestions. So with that, I open it up to your thoughts and questions and et cetera. They have, most of these companies have their prejudice on what you should be doing. Because they are, there's very few examples. Right now, probably Cision Vocus, and the third social media company that's come on board, is probably the closest to the best example of one that cares potentially about several pieces, but they don't care about paid media. I mean, I'm putting words in their mouth. They might care, but that's not what they're selling to you. So you have to really kind of make the call on what's going to make the difference for you.
There's tons of tools available. What tools are going to make the most impact in getting your customer along that path? To my knowledge, there's not any, survey type thing, and these companies don't have anything that they may, within SEO, they may say this is the type of product that would work for you. That's fair. And a lot of them that start at $6,000 and go up to $100,000, they may be able to tell you, okay, you have this number of customers, this is how often you talk to them, this is what you're trying to accomplish, this is what we recommend for you. I would say most of them would do that. Our director of digital insights would say that it's getting better all the time. Those tools that tie back in to whether it's proprietary software or off-the-shelf software are becoming more and more common. For this exact reason, we're in here talking about all these different tools, all these different tactics. It gets overwhelming. So there are many of the tools that do allow you to tie into your own customized software and work with you on that. When Domo came in and talked to us, that was one of the things that they talked about. And I can't name the types of systems that they work with, but they named several names that weren't really very familiar to me that were impressive sounding. And more and more of them are trying to tie in for that exact reason. It's going to integrate. That's great, and that probably happens to them more often than not. And if they're not able to integrate with what you have, they've lost a sale and they know it. So more and more of them are making certain that they can do just that. So that's perfect. That's perfect. Yes.
So do you have a real example of some key tipping points?
I have three really good examples, because they almost don't even make sense until you hear them. We didn't know until we got into the study and understanding of these three businesses. The first one is the largest manufacturer of tile in the U.S. We mapped out their customer journey. We looked at their different audiences who were prospects. We looked at what type of marketing communications they were working with before we started working with them. And we found that the key tipping point for them was getting someone into the showroom. If they brought someone into the showroom, the numbers skyrocketed. So a lot of the marketing communications efforts have been put on driving. They had all sorts of tools and all sorts of things they were working with, but a lot of the focus has been put on driving people into the showroom. We have another client that makes an outdoor product that found that when people ordered their catalogs, the numbers went through the roof. They needed the inspiration. They had plenty of advertising online. They did tons of print advertising. They did some television on HGTV type places. And that was all great. But what they needed was to get that catalog into people's hands so that they could get inspired and get ideas. And with that example, this is not exactly what you're saying, but with that example, not only did we learn that that was incredibly important, but it wasn't just inspirational, amazing videos. We needed to have images that were attainable. These were beautiful, gorgeous homes with these unbelievable backgrounds and pools and palm trees and everything. But we learned that for some, that didn't get them motivated because they didn't think they could attain it. So I guess that's the answer to the question is that was the tipping point. Absolutely, was when they ordered a catalog. So everything we're doing for them is driving people to order that catalog. So we run ads with encouragement we run sweepstakes to get them to order a catalog. Not everything, but a lot of what we're doing is because that we found was their key tipping point.
So for the showroom, are people just counting the number of people walking in? Is that just counted as far as the measurement?
Well, you have touched on one of the biggest challenges with a lot of different companies, which is it's hard if you deal with dealers or distributors or retailers, it's hard than it is if they're your own customer to get data on what's happening there. Theirs would be probably, and I can't say for sure, but theirs would be probably some sort of anecdotal slash some measured information on how many people come in the showroom. Obviously, you would tie that back into sales, have sales increased since the efforts to bring those people in the showroom have increased substantially. And I know that in some cases we have asked builders, we have asked retailers to keep tabs and keep track of. We try to measure as much as we possibly can, but it is difficult. The other thing that's difficult, and some of you probably deal with it, is that you're selling through, no one can buy directly from you or some of your clients, and then so you are completely dependent upon dealers or distributors or retailers to provide, tangible data and information to you, and some are better than others with that. So, yeah, I'd say for every company, there's going to be different places in that customer journey with different customers where the tipping point takes place. I mean, some of them are just getting inspired. They're just becoming aware. Others, if you're targeting architects or contractors, perhaps they're doing research. If they're spec writers, they may be doing research to try to understand some of the features and technical aspects. Others are out shopping and looking. And then we even, on the customer journey, we talk about enjoyment, what happens afterwards. How are you engaging with them afterwards as well? So.
And so that tipping point is really just the highest conversion to the next stage?
Yes, that's it. That's really it. By customer within that journey to get them to keep going to that next spot. Yep. And think about it, because if you have 4 audiences, I mean, very few of us deal with just one audience or one decision maker. You want to prioritize those audiences so that you're making sure that your priority audience is the one that is getting enough attention that you're getting them to go to point A to point B to point C, and you may not have enough money to go down to your tertiary audience and do anything except some, very inexpensive efforts to reach them. We have seen also companies that they have 6 target audiences. All these target audiences matter to us, but then they spread themselves so thin in every one of them, they're not really very effective with any of the audiences. So that's why we say prioritization can really make a difference in how you not only spend your money, but in the success that you have. So. I can tell you that we have gone to some of these providers of services and tools, and we've said that our customers in this area, do you have experience working with this particular type of channel, with this particular vertical? And of course, all of them, yes, we have experience in everything. But I think that's a fair question to ask them, is do you have experience working specifically with this kind of vertical, whether it's with retailers or with homeowners or with general contractors, whatever it may be. Get out of that whole world there and start talking about with financial analysts or with CEOs or with VPs of sales, whatever it is. But I think that's a fair question to ask as you're determining what providers make the most sense. So, yeah. Anybody else have any other? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What advice would you give a client that has historically never measured anything? And you're trying to encourage them, as I press upon my Siri here.
Maybe she can answer you. I don't know. So ask her.
And you're trying to convince and educate them on the benefit of implementing measurement tactics, processes, principles.
Are they even doing high-level sales, volume, transactions, new customers, profit? Are you even there? Then go there first. I would never get into all this other marketing goals and strategies and audiences and all that until you get them to take a look at business objectives and think through what they're trying. You can't do anything if you don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, of course, like I said, everybody's going to say, yes, sales, we want it all, we want profit, we want everything, but make them think through those things so it makes your job easier to figure out where you're going to go to try to accomplish those things. Yeah, if they're not even there yet, that I absolutely would start at that highest level, and and the other thing that they'll do is they'll appreciate you as a marketer or as a provider of marketing services. They'll appreciate the fact that you're trying to help them improve their business and think through their business. And I feel you, because there are a lot of companies that it's surprising how the sales teams and the marketing teams have very different goals, have very different objectives. Marketing is down this path going to this group, and salespeople, these are our goals, and the two don't intersect. You have it at even a higher level, at the C level. So that's where I would start. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Or does anybody have any tools that they would like to share that they found to be successful in any of these particular media? Yeah, yeah. And then overlaying other pieces of information with that. Yeah, I think that's great. So, all right, with that, one last thing. If you could either share your feedback to this on the comment cards that we're going to be passing around in just a second, that would be great. We are trying to improve this every time that we give this discussion. Or if you're willing to give some comments, and they can be negative, that's perfectly fine. On video, we have a videographer in back who's going to be asking for some feedback on the presentation. So with that, thank you so much for having me here today. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you.